Hi, thank you for joining me for another episode of Intuition Your First Sense. We are getting pretty close to the 100 episode mark, which is very exciting for me and pretty amazing that you're tuning in and listening. And I get the messages each week that I just found your podcast and I'm so excited. Thanks for the breath of fresh air and the honesty and truthfulness, which, hey, I'm grateful for because I am known as a straight shooter and probably not if I actually tried to shoot something. Not quite sure my aim would be all that great, but when it comes to communication or calling out something that's in discrepancy or just doesn't feel like it's in alignment, you can depend on me for that. I am so grateful to be here, to be discussing topics that I feel are pertinent to the human experience as we learn to merge this soul level with our physical experience. And yes, we can call it a journey. It's definitely all a work in process for every one of us, many lifetimes of it. And I'm going to do the best I can in this one to help all of us navigate it. And this week, I feel like it would be a good service, I hope you do too, to know a little bit about what's going on energetically. And this has been happening for years, so don't think you've missed it if you're listening to this 4 or 5 months later or whenever it shows up. We are always in a process of expansion, of growth, of truth-telling, whatever that truth may be in and for and of ourselves. We're always in that process of seeking that, of wanting to know it. And sometimes we want to ignore it, like a couple episodes back about the hook and the look. Like sometimes we get so hooked up into the process and the experience and the drama around it that we forget to look for the joy of truth. And this episode really is here to speak to that, to how can we really appreciate that seeing the truth is helpful. And of course, we're going to come at it from different perspectives. Someone may not see it the same way I do. Like that, what's that expression? Your view, my view, and then the truth. So it's always based on our life experience and what's been accumulative up to that process. But energetically, we have been in such a clearing of the BS and clearing of the falsehoods and a helpfulness from the powers in the universe, and I truly believe our collective desire for that transparency. And each time in your lifetime you say, I just want someone to tell me the truth, or why can't it be that we have a conversation and people not jump to conclusions and all of that, you're also sending out an energy that is helpful for this. So thank you very much. And if we're best using our time here and our expansion as souls, I believe that if we ask to see truth, we will. And we started this many years ago in a push, I feel, for anything that is not of resonance to dissipate, to actually move on out. And that includes relationships. It might include jobs. It could include where you're living. It may be our whole political system, our educational system, our local networks that are collapsing in order to be revealing and in order to be built in a way of honest communication, transparency, and working towards a common goal. We have this division that happens where I'm on this side, you're on that side, or I come from this perspective, you come from that perspective. Well, why can't they all have a voice? Why can't they all be heard? And then we can determine what's the best course of action. And I know why I'm not being facetious here. I know that we have a contribution from our own learning, from our wiring, from what we were taught growing up, and from the ego perspective and the unsupportive ego. Remembering that the supportive side of the ego is a beautiful thing. It helps us to ask these questions and to want to see truth. And what I've been seeing, not only in myself, but in people and in our world, is this view, this expression. It's not really an expression, it's an example. Like literally in my mind's eye, I have been seeing a film being pulled off. Kind of like one of those, those really thin films that when you buy a piece of electronic, and it has that film to protect the screen on it, and sometimes you might use it for a little bit before realizing, hey, I probably should peel that off. That's what it feels like is happening and is coming off of people's third eye, their mind's eye, their view and their whole view of the universe and of their individual world. And you're included in this. So it's not always a they situation or the universe or my experience. You're going through this. If the person is on this planet right now, they are experiencing that. You are experiencing it in some format. And I would suggest that you look at your own life and see where that is. I just had a conversation with someone who was pretty twisted up about our political system in the States right now. And I asked her to see that this is actually something we needed. I know as someone who is, by registration, I'm a Democrat. And by wiring, I am pretty accepting of who people are. And I felt an incredible push during this process where I had to freaking wake up, and I had to be willing to see that, yes, some people do have a spiteful energy and some people are ticked off, and it's not all because they have hurts. It has been my practice to feel into what caused that hurt that would cause the view that they would act in that way. But you know what? I just don't have the computer space in my brain anymore to be okay with that. And I feel like this incredible pressure that we've been under between the elections, and this is in any country that this exists because human exists, but also because of the virus. I'm not going to say the name because then you get edited, but also what's going on in family dynamics and in our incredibly cramped financial situation because systems and businesses have gone out. And it's just creating such a crunch, but it's also helping to wake us up. It's helping some of us that were pretty passive and not speaking up and not taking a stand and not helping out except to look at our own lives and be the best example we can be there. And I think that's still important, but we have to open our mouths, especially if you're in a place of privilege. If you're like myself, I am a 51-year-old white female, and while I've had challenges in my life, I have actually never even experienced, that I'm aware of, maybe I just didn't pay attention, any kind of gender issue where I was seen as the less than female. I just don't think I hold that energy, and I thankfully have not, with the exception of one supervisor, but he was pretty benign, if you ask me, because all I did was tell him off once and he knocked it off. So, that place of privilege, I have to recognize if I'm being a good steward of the earth and a good participant to fellow humanity. And the push of the election helped me to see that. And I even had somebody who said, when I have a platform, I must remain neutral. And I said, no, thank you. No, thank you. I do not have to remain neutral. I built this platform. I get to speak from this platform in whatever way that I deem is helpful. So I cannot remain neutral any longer and talk about and encourage people to see truth in their life. I mean, how hypocritical is that? Am I supposed to just brush over things and not speak up when there's someone who's been treated disrespectfully, or when I see how I can help in a situation? Well, that just gets us more passivity, and that just locks us into a life, I think, and a space within ourselves where we don't feel good, because when you're in alignment with yourself, when there's an opportunity for you to speak up and you didn't, and you felt afterwards that maybe you regretted it, or maybe it wasn't anything that was huge, but you wished that you'd done something, so that encourages you the next time to do it. And this can be picking up litter. Just because somebody else put it there doesn't mean you can't contribute and pick it up. It doesn't mean that you can't see the earth as a whole and something that you want to help with. I've been picking up the masks, and some people have said to me, don't do that. And I'm like, knock it off. You know what? First of all, it's been out here and in the weather and everything. Whatever cooties are on it probably aren't even there. But secondary to that, if I walk past that and I don't pick it up and dispose of it properly, I will feel that within myself, and I'll feel like I shirked some kind of commitment I made to myself. Not necessarily everybody else, and not to the slob that dropped it, but the commitment I made coming in as a soul to see how much I can contribute and how I can do well in the world. So this process that we're in right now, this time that we're in right now, and we're going into a new year, which does tend to heighten the energy a little bit. This time that we're in, we're really experiencing an opportunity to use the energy that is of the whole expansion to see truth. It's okay to see something, to acknowledge it, to want clarity. And this can be in your own relationships, in your own life, of, is this person the best interest for me? Is this relationship the best for both of us? Because all parties need to be considered. You know, it's no different than anything that I encourage every week, which is to know yourself so well that your connection to your own soul and how you're being in the world is of the highest intention while you're growing, while you're learning. So you may not want to help, and that would be okay, except picking up litter. You can bend over, consider it burning a calorie, pick it up. You can not want to help someone to expand, to grow, to learn. It is not our job. It's actually my job, but it's not in my personal relationships to be there as the instructor of growth, because number one, that would be so annoying to anyone in a relationship with me. But it would also be rather condescending. So while we are responsible for seeing the truth and knowing our alignment, we're not responsible for bringing that to other people. And I had someone last week who is actually in a professional capacity, and she's like, what if I don't want to help them? Like, what if I can see through their BS and I just don't want to help them? And I said to her, well, you don't have to want to help them. If you are in a professional capacity and you have agreed that this is your role, if this is what you've decided, say you're in customer service, or you are a therapist, or you're a doctor, and maybe you're just so damn frustrated because the person who keeps coming to you is telling you BS and you know it, and they don't want to change, and you don't have the capacity, the capability of changing them, because we don't. People have to want to do it for themselves. It's okay to not want to help. It's okay to see the truth that this person is telling you that, of course, I don't eat any sweets. I don't know why my diabetes is out of control. Of course, it's okay to not want to help. But if you've agreed to be in that helping position, I think in order to be in alignment with yourself, perhaps you suggest ways that they could shift, even if you've said it 5 million times. And I think this would be so helpful for the pressure that we have and sometimes place on ourselves when you're in a helping profession, that, well, if I said I was going to do this, I have to, do it almost to the detriment of myself when this person clearly did not want to help themselves. When Howard, was my husband who's passed, was going through his health issues, he was so non-compliant. And there got to be a point where I said to him, I cannot go to your doctor's appointments while this physician is sitting there feeling all twisted up that he can't figure out why he hasn't been able to help you yet. And you are lying to his face about taking the blood pressure medicine. And I stopped going. And yes, there was some guilt there, because shouldn't I help him? I understood the medical process more than he did. And I was willing to, shift our lives and do what was needed in order for him to be in a healthy space, but he was not. And we actually had some conversations about that and cleared the air. And I said to him, I can love you, I can want to help you, but I cannot twist myself up and join you in the untruth of this. And then it was clear between us, what the trajectory was. And it was honest. And I think it actually helped me respect him more, because I realized, well, this is his choice. I'm not being of help if I'm simply saying, I want you to follow my protocol. I want you to take the medicine because I want you to take the medicine, not because I'm not listening to you. So it was growth on both of our parts for me to be able to accept that. And it was hard. It was incredibly hard to watch someone that you love so dearly cash in their own life. But if I'm being as truthful and open and honest in my relationships as I'm asking all of you to be, well, then it wouldn't have been right for me to continue to push him to do what he didn't want to do. And at some point, you have to realize that 90% of the people that we're engaging with are adults. And I have an expression that I will say to people, aren't they a GAFA? And plug your ears or mute this if you've got kids in the car, because I am going to swear and I'm going to have to give this an explicit rating this time, which I have not done yet, but it's worth it. So if you have someone in your life who's an adult, but who for whatever reason is not showing up for themselves or not acting, and they continue to talk about what they like, but they're not doing any of the work, and you could be that person too, it's very helpful to say to yourself that, well, this person is a GAFA. This is a grown-ass fucking adult. And as a grown-ass fucking adult, I am not responsible for their process. And the only caveat to that is someone who has some different ability that they do need the assistance in the world. But most of us have been in a situation where we are making excuses for others, and because we don't want to see the truth that they are not willing to do the lifting or do the truth seeking within. And that's okay. You're not abandoning them when you're handing it over to their own process. A lot of the times I'll be talking with parents who their children are adults, and they're still telling me, and I'm talking late 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, and they're still all twisted up about it. And I have to be the voice of directness, straight shooter, remember? When I say to them, are you kidding me? Like, at some point, you have to step back. And we used to say, cut the umbilical cord, which I think is still appropriate, if they came to you through adoption step or through the carrying of them. We have to stop enabling other people in their lack, in their sometimes even laziness. And it's hard. It's so hard to walk away sometimes, or just to back up. You don't have to leave their life. But if you want truth in your life, you can't have it be in some areas and not in others. I just had to take my cat into the vet, and I know that her kidneys are failing. I could feel that happening. And when I went in and we did due diligence, did the blood tests and everything to reflect back to me what I already knew. And the way that my very sweet, amazing, my cat's veterinarian, I don't have a veterinarian, her veterinarian was telling me this, I finally said to him, I already know all of this stuff. Well, first of all, my husband had kidney issues, but so I'm well aware of this process, but shoot it to me straight. And I understand that some people need a delicate straight, and some of us like it right to the point, just lay it out there and then let me process and then we'll deal with it. But when you dance around things and you're not able to allow truth in, it feels awful, because your innate intelligence, your intuition, your first sense knows that something is off. And I promise you, it's less work and less stress to talk about it, to look at it, to discuss it, and then to create an action plan if we need to. And, we have an action plan with her. She's going to eat as much as she possibly wants, and, probably be meowing in the back of this podcast a few hundred times. She's sitting on my lap right now. But we have a plan, and there's a knowing. And I think when we are educated and we're willing to see truth, the whole body just relaxes. Because I think one of the worst things we can do is lie to ourselves. It might not be easy to deal with whatever the subject is, or maybe there's disappointment, perhaps there's grief, maybe there's frustration, or there's a depression energy that actually happens as a result of having to face truth. But I promise you, your system is built for truth, honesty, integrity, transparency. You are capable of having all of this and, doing your magic with it. So it may mean that you have to release some guilt about leaving others to their own devices, about trusting that if they are able to show up in their life in some area, they're capable of showing up in other areas. There are many times I will say to someone, it could be about their partner or about their child, their adult child, and I'll say, do you think their boss puts up with this? Do you think that their boss is okay with the behavior that you're seeing at home, or the disrespect, or whatever it is? Do you really think that they'd still be getting a paycheck if that was the case? And the clarity and the feeling, the look that comes over somebody's face when the realization hits that, oh man, I've been not only unwilling to see the truth in them, I've been unwilling to see and admit the truth in myself. So as we go through these next few months, give yourself the gift of receiving truth. That does not mean that you have to have the conversation immediately. It doesn't even mean that you have to have a conversation at all. There's many times that I realize a truth about someone in my life and I don't discuss it with them, because if it's not going to impact my daily life and if it's not going to help, why even bother? You can see truth and not have to have a throwdown about it. And hey, let's consider that on our social media platforms too. You can understand that something is not how you would want to see it or in its greatest expression. And believe it or not, you can leave it right where it is. And it is a delicate balance between contributing, being a part of, and not discussing or not causing a kerfuffle is the word that comes to mind. And I think in that, when we are feeling a truth, seeing a truth, knowing a truth, we also have to ask if there's anything else that we need to know. Is there anything else that we need to learn? Are we missing any information? Is the truth as I see it today the whole truth? Or is it me wanting to be right? Because sometimes people say, I am speaking my truth. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just being obnoxious because you want to be right. If you're absolutely in the appreciation of truth, you always want more information. You want to know that the feeling you have is solid, it's valid. And this is a lifelong process. That's why this has been happening for, so many millennia, and it will continue to happen. But the more people and the more energies that we have on board that are saying, yeah, I would like to see the truth. I might not like it. I might find out that that person I trusted in my local government really was working some deals behind the scenes to pad their own pocket. I might not like it. But now I have information in which to be informed. That's a little redundant, information in which to be informed. However, you know what I'm talking about. And I can decide from here where to go. So this push is going to be on, and it's going to continue throughout 2021, 22, 23, 24, feeling my way through this with an ease around 25. So, hey, we've got time to look at all this stuff. Oh boy, I hadn't looked at it yet. So that's good to know. See, truth is good to know. And I trust in that when I feel something out like that, in exactly that experience where I'm like, okay, I just keep going energetically until the flow comes to a halt. And then I'll know, okay, this is what I'm looking at throughout the next 4 years. Fantastic. Because then, well, one, it's not a rush to the finish. And the message in that is it can't be a rush to the finish. And two, I get to express to you that this does not need to be done overnight. This is something that you can ask of, you can explore, and maybe you can take a walk and you'll be able to seek some information from within of what is true to you today. Maybe it's true today that you don't like Brussels sprouts, but maybe tomorrow you will. This stuff does not have to be all deep life-altering decisions. Sometimes the truth comes in the littlest ways, in the sweetest ways. So I have said truth a lot in this episode, and I truly hope for you a dance with truth that is playful, that is fun, that has depth, that has exploration, and that has moments of, oh shit. Because if you think that you have completely looked at the truth in your life and you haven't said, shit, at least once, there's probably another layer to look at. Thank you for being here. I am grateful. I look forward to hearing what truths you've uncovered, what you've discovered, and what you are bringing to the world. Because when we know ourselves so well and we are aligned, we then get to bring that magic out into the world in our own way. And all of you have that. And I am excited to see in what way it shines out. So thank you. I wish you the best of the completion of 2020 and into 21. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to Intuition, Your First Sense. I'm so grateful to have you here. It's like a gift to me every week. And speaking of gifts, did you know that you can purchase gift certificates on my website, vickibaird.com, for yourself, for others? You can purchase coaching packages and gift those out. And you can allow yourself to be part of this great holiday season. I so love being part of the gift giving and the gift receiving. So please head on over to vickibaird.com and purchase your electronic gift certificate.